So I'm going to try a slightly new approach. It's going to be a mix of talking and writing. It does help me to organize my thoughts and to synthesize my research. But for the time being, I really do not have the time that I wish I had. Right now, every minute of my life is scheduled to the T, every second. I am a full-time employee. I'm also working on a side hustle outside of my professional business hours simply to earn extra income from the low wages. So that's the reality, and I'm not able to dedicate as much time as I wish I could. It's funny though, when you think about the term side hustle, that's a very millennial and Gen Z term. The younger generation is actually responsible for the term side hustle. It's become a cultural phenomenon, really, and it marks a shift in the way that we work. And that's part of the reason why I wanted to start my channel. I've had a lot of creative outlets over the years, and lately they've been all touching on this similar topic and this similar issue. It's very important to me. Modern life it has become a dumpster fire for so many Americans, let's say. And instead of working to live, we are literally living to work. So this channel is circling around some interrelated issues between work culture, capitalism, education, healthcare. So in a way, I'm still finding my footing. I'm still finding my voice. For now, I'm just content to be a part of a larger conversation about these issues. So that's just my little life update. Today, I want to talk about the targeted attack on the UnitedHealthcare CEO, Brian Thompson. So the story of his passing had been all over the news for the past 4 days at the time of recording. And a couple of things that stood out about the case is the relative skill with which the perpetrator was actually able to evade apprehension by the authorities. And it took place in broad daylight. And this is the kind of story that I think quickly rocks the nation. You got a lot of people who are interested in what is going to happen in the coming days. And then to add onto the lure, you have the evidence that was left behind of individual casings, each with specific messages inscribed. I read a CNN article that was suggesting that the words left on the casings may have been alluding to a popular oath in the health industry or the health insurance industry, which is basically the systematic practice of delaying, denying, and defending final coverage decisions. Something like that. So super, super interesting case. Now, in the media, they've almost painted the suspect out to be some sort of John Wick level vigilante, like a Robin Hood type, not quite a villain, but more like an anti-hero, passing righteous judgment. And as a narrative, it is an extremely attractive one. It's really hard to look away from a case like this. My takeaway is that there has been such a very vocal outpouring of sentiments from the general public, and the lack of concern for the deceased, the sarcasm, the cajoling, it really was shocking to me, because I don't think I've seen anything like that in recent years to this degree. And I'm wondering, damn, are we in the age of Aquarius, rapture, find out season that everybody has been talking about lately? So I'm simply astonished by what looks to me to be a collective shift in the American value system. And it's something to look out for. So, back in the day, or even in the recent past, we would have, these good, hardworking, salt of the earth Americans, and they would ultimately shield their true opinions and their judgments and their criticisms they would shield them behind platitudes, things like never speak ill of the deceased and condolences and thoughts and prayers and in your time of need. But this time, you actually see a general consensus of a thirst for retribution. And we haven't seen that before, I don't think, to this degree. So I thought that was interesting. Now, a part of the ongoing conversation about healthcare woes is the other provider, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, was also recently in hot water. They had gone under fire for creating a policy decision that would reduce the amount of coverage or reduce the time frame of coverage for surgical anesthesia for patients in several states. So this decision was recently reversed, and many people are making connections between these two stories and wondering if public outcry had something to do with the reversal of this policy decision by Blue Cross Blue Shield. Now, it ties into a theory of corporate greed and how it becomes insidious somehow, like the interplay of corporate greed mixing up against our value systems, our morals, and what we value as a collective. So that's interesting. And it's almost like oil and water. The two just do not mix. And that corporate greed, the way that it leaks out into several industries, and it's not working anymore. It really is not working for the vast majority of Americans. And so it's something to watch out for, the shift in the winds. I think it's also wise to mention, and now is as good as time as any to mention that, all swirled up in this mix of a dusty little cyclone of this healthcare conversation, there is ongoing right now as we speak, the potential of a preemptive pardon for Dr. Science himself. The American president may, before his departure, choose to spare Anthony F. of all criminal liability. Now, just to recap, because I think not many people are paying attention to it these days, the good doctor had come under fire and gone before Congress to discuss his role in conducting harmful research in China, which is still hotly debated among certain circles. Now, under his leadership and expertise, we formed an aggressive response to what we believed to be the greatest medical threat of our time. And it later was shown that the doctor used his influence to not only guide the trajectory of our decision-making, but also to deter attention from what has now become a very plausible explanation of its origin. So I won't begin to reopen old wounds, although I do think that there is a part of a very important conversation that we need to be having here in America. And it's a shame that many of us don't seem to have the sustained ability for focused attention on this matter. Now, after the past 5 years, due to the constant barrage of medical traumas imposed on the collective psyche, I guess it's become like any other pain point. Some of us dealt with it by going on the offense, taking control and making swift, decisive action, and attempting to bend the external environment to our internal will for safety, and then trying to make ourselves useful. And then some of us delved as deeply as we could, researching and gathering data and collecting stories from near and far, trying to really make sense of something that was always essentially just outside the bounds of our comprehension. And for way too many of us, we just got on with it. We just pushed it all down as far as possible. We compartmentalized. We shoved it away as if it wasn't there, as if it didn't exist. We just stuck our heads in the sand. And, as we know, of course, it did exist. And it was a huge part of our lives. It is still having a huge impact on our society, culturally, within families, and definitely economically. So it did happen, and it's important to give our attention where it needs to be. But anyway, I do bring all this up because I noticed that there's a new shift in the winds, as evidenced by the throngs of American citizens who openly are dreaming of the chance to buy the masked perpetrator a cup of coffee and pat him on the back for a job well done. I have never seen anything like it. They're openly admitting this. The response to the recent loss of the former CEO shows that people are really clamoring for justice and accountability. A life where profits don't stand in the way of our general health and wellness in this country. And who knows just what might be the result of this ever-growing sentiment. And one of the things I forgot to mention about this case is that the victim was headed to a board meeting about an hour prior to his passing. And the super interesting, super cringe, super like, I can't believe that happened. Part of the story is that the board meeting went on. It actually continued. It actually went off on time. And I thought that was such an important detail for people to grasp, to really see the scope of which the scope of just how these corporations operate. So we can't unknow that. We can't unsee that. We can't forget about that, and how it looks and what the implications are. So now, snapping back to reality for a moment. Compared to other developed nations, America still has a long way to go. I recently did a video about how to obtain mental health care coverage without insurance. And in it, I discussed how hardworking Americans are itching for a new reality. In our current model, medical care is still the single greatest source of debt for American families. And for the amount that we pay into the marketplace, our coverage simply pales in comparison to that of other developed nations. So yeah, this is a topic of great interest. And although the hope is that we could do better as a society when it comes to protecting our citizens from predatory insurance practices, much like the patient claims at UnitedHealthcare, that wish has been denied.